This is a list of architectural historians. The names are grouped by order of the historical period in which they were writing, which is not necessarily the same as the period in which they specialize. Architectural historians born in the 19th century. James Ferguson, architect, 1808-1886, South Asian architecture. Sir Alexander Cunningham, 1814-1893, Indian architecture. Sir Bannister Fletcher, 1866-1953, author of the once standard textbook A History of Architecture on the comparative method written with his father, also named Bannister Fletcher, 1833-1899, and still in print. Juan Uria, 1880-1957, History of South American Architecture. Architectural historians born in the 20th century. James S. Ackerman, 1920-2016, Italian Renaissance Architecture. Stanford Anderson, 1934-2016, Modern Architecture. Leopoldo Ciartuccio, 1903-1976, Modern Architecture in Uruguay. Salman Bandyopadhyay, Architecture of Oman. Rainer Banham, 1922-1988, taught by Pevsner and author of Theory and Design in the First Machine Age, 1960. Leonardo Benevolo, 1923-2017, 20th Century Architecture. Karen Burns, born 1962, historian of 19th century architecture and 20th century architecture. Graham Butler, architectural historian and heritage practitioner. William J. R. Curtis, born 1948, 20th century architecture. Harriet Edquist, 20th century architecture. Kenneth Frampton, born 1930, 20th century architecture. Adam Hardy, born 1953, South Asian architecture. Ahmed Hassan Dani, 1920-2009, South Asian architecture. John Harvey, 1911-1997, English Gothic architecture and architects. Jonathan Hill, Professor of Architecture and Visual Theory at University College London, England. Mark Jarzembek, born 1954, Professor of the History and Theory of Architecture, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. James Semple Kerr, 1932-2014, Australian conservation architect and author of the Conservation Plan. Miles Ballantyne Lewis, born 1943, Australian academic specializing in building materials. Cesar J. Laustow, 1926-2011, architecture in Uruguay in the 19th and 20th centuries. Aurelio Lucchini, died 1989, Uruguayan architecture. Michael W. Meister, temple architecture and the morphology of meaning of the Indian subcontinent. Nicolaus Pevsner, 1902-1983, author of the 46-volume series, The Buildings of England. Herbert Rickey, 1901-1976, head of the Swiss Research Institute on Egyptian Architecture and Archaeology in Cairo, specialist of ancient Egyptian architecture. Sarasi Kumar Saraswati, 1906-1980, Bangladeshi historian of art and architecture. John Summerson, 1904-1992, author of The Classical Language of Architecture and Architecture in Britain, 1530-1830. Jennifer Taylor, 1935-2015, Australian, Japanese, and South Pacific architecture. Michael D. Willis, born 1951, early temple architecture of central India. See also: historiography, history, historian, outline of architecture. References